Chapter 19. Norway. On September 2nd, 1993, the following article appeared in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency entitled Progress Reportedly Being Made on Israel PLO Recognition Pact. While negotiators meet in Washington for what are now being perceived as merely formal sessions, substantive progress reportedly is being made in Oslo, Norway, toward a mutual recognition pact between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. There, far from the glare of media spotlights, Yuri Savir, Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry, reportedly has been working with PLO officials on the language of a declaration, which some say could be announced shortly. As a precondition for its recognition of the PLO, Israel is demanding that it amend its 1964 Palestine National Covenant, deleting passages calling for the destruction of Israel, explicitly recognizing Israel's right to exist, and renouncing terrorism. But the PLO counters that such a formal move would delay the process, since changing the covenant would require a meeting of the Palestine National Council, the organization's so-called parliament in exile. PLO chairman Yasser Arafat, who is far from certain he could win the backing for such a move from hardline PLO factions, is hoping to persuade the Israelis that declarations made by the Council in 1988 and 1991 supersede the articles in the covenant that the Israelis want deleted. The 1988 declaration affirmed Israel's right to exist and renounced terrorism. The 1991 declaration affirmed the need to begin a process of peace talks with Israel. Officials at the Oslo talks are reportedly encountering difficulties in finding a mutually agreeable text for their declaration. All the same, PLO officials remain optimistic in their appraisal that a declaration is near. PLO official Hakim Balawi told the Israelis' army radio on Wednesday that a declaration would take place within 24 hours and that Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Arafat would meet within the next few weeks. The meeting between the two leaders, said Balawi, would take place after the protocols of the mutual recognition are signed. While that prediction seemed a bit optimistic, analysts here were not ruling out anything, given the monumental advances of the past week. But Foreign Minister Shimon Peres drew a distinction Wednesday between the self-rule agreement approved by the cabinet and any mutual recognition pact with the PLO. He said the relevant Palestinian organizations should sign the self-rule accord and then take the appropriate steps to disengage themselves from terrorism. Meanwhile, Egyptian Foreign Minister Amre Moussa met here Wednesday with Rabin and Peres and applauded the rapid progress made in the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Moussa reiterated Egypt's support for the Israeli-Palestinian Accord on limited self-rule in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank city of Jericho. But he stressed that the parties should try to achieve a comprehensive peace in the region, including Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. The Palestinians, for their part, were working hard at rallying support for the accord. Arafat has been touring the Arab world this week, trying to get the backing of Arab leaders in Egypt, Yemen, and Sudan for the self-rule agreement with Israel. But Palestinians opposed to the accord are determined to do everything possible to prevent its implementation. Two representatives of the militant Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Riyad al-Maliki and Ali Jada, declared their total opposition to the agreement at a news conference on Tuesday. Malki said his organization would resist the autonomy plan just as it had resisted Israel's administration of the territories, saying they were two sides of the same coin. Well aware of the growing pressures from Palestinian rejectionists, Palestinian leaders are making statements designed to keep them at bay. In the Sudanese capital of Khartoum, Arafat said the Palestinians would never give up an inch of Jerusalem, and Yasser Abed Rabo, who heads the PLO's information department, declared that under the agreement, some 800,000 refugees who had fled the territories following the Six-Day War in 1967 would be allowed to return to their homes. On February 11, 1994, the following article appeared in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency entitled, With Signing of Cairo Document, Prospects Brighten for Self-Rule. With the accord known as the Cairo Document signed this week by Foreign Minister Shimon Peres and Palestine Liberation Organization Chairman Yasser Arafat, prospects have brightened for starting the implementation of the Palestinian Self-Rule Accord within the next few weeks. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin said Thursday he hoped remaining negotiations for the accord could be completed within 1 month, now that the security aspects have been mostly resolved. The Cairo document was further enforced by Israel Defense Force sources, who said that the army will begin to withdraw from the Gaza Strip and West Bank town of Jericho within a month. Implementation of the accord has been held up by disagreements over security issues, but these were largely resolved in the 3-page Cairo document and a separate 8-page agreement signed in the Egyptian capital on Wednesday. Under the terms of the Self-Rule Accord that was signed in Washington last September, Israel was scheduled to complete withdrawal of its forces from Gaza and Jericho by April 13th. Rabin has repeatedly cautioned that the April date is not holy, but political sources here say the remaining negotiations should now proceed smoothly and quickly. The negotiations, which will focus on some remaining security issues and on the transfer of authority in Gaza and Jericho to the Palestinians, were scheduled to resume next week in Paris and in the Sinai border town of Tabah. Israel Television reported Thursday that the IDF High Command was very pleased with the Cairo Accord and that IDF officials agreed no important security concerns were compromised. The television report followed recent rumors of disquiet within the army over the progress of the negotiations, particularly how they would affect Israeli security. The agreement reached in Cairo provides for overall Israeli control of external security in the two self-governing areas. The crossing points between Gaza and Egypt and between Jericho and Jordan will continue to be situated within IDF deployments. But within the immigration terminals themselves, a major effort has been made to accommodate Palestinian sensibilities without foregoing Israel's right to examine travelers and their belongings, and to bar them entry if security considerations require this. The terminals will contain separate Israeli and Palestinian checkpoints. The size of the Jericho area, another long-standing bone of contention, was set at around 21 square miles, but the two sides agreed it will be reviewed by Arafat and Rabin when they meet to finalize the agreement. Rabin, in interviews on Thursday, hinted broadly he will be prepared to expand the size of the Jericho area, provided other issues are satisfactorily concluded. The Cairo agreement gives the Palestinians access to Muslim holy places around the Jericho area and also calls for joint Israeli-Palestinian tourism projects on the northern shore of the Dead Sea. In Jericho, joint patrols on main roads will be led by a Palestinian vehicle, and in the Gaza Strip, where about 12,000 Jewish settlers live in 3 enclaves among some 850,000 Palestinians, key roads will be jointly patrolled too, but with an IDF vehicle leading each patrol. Rabin said these provisions would facilitate reasonable security for Israel. He noted that even now, before any final agreement with the PLO, Israel did not have complete security. If we want to give peace a chance, we must solve our problems with the Palestinians, Rabin declared. Members of the opposition were critical, and Likud leaders blasted the accord as a surrender to terrorism. The leader of Somet, Knesset member Raphael Eitan, predicted the PLO would be incapable of living up to its commitments. The former general also predicted a constant battle for control of the roads through Gaza and Jericho. Many Palestinians criticized the agreement, saying the PLO had caved in to Israeli security concerns. But PLO leaders say the agreement allows for some symbols of Palestinian authority and dignity, noting that armed Palestinian policemen and a Palestinian flag will be visible at the immigration points. Arafat was also optimistic about the agreement. He said, quote, "We are sure we can create a new era for our people. We can say that Palestine and the name of Palestine have returned to the map of the Middle East." End quote.